I worked really hard to get out of working in the business to work on the business. And I think once I got to the point where I was working on the business, now I'm working really hard to work above the business. And so as I grow as a leader and a CEO and a business owner and the flavored Temptress and chief dishwasher or whatever you want to call me today, I think it changes as you start growing because you have more mental capacity when you have a good team of people worried about other things that you used to have to worry about. And I know it's really hard sometimes for entrepreneurs because we're all control freaks. We want to have our hands in everything. We want to control everything. We want to know about everything. But I think for me, I stepped back and said, okay, I'm going to bring this person in. They know way more about finance than I do, right? And they may not handle a situation maybe exactly the same way that I would, but I'm hiring them and I'm trusting them and I have to support them. The people who got you to here aren't going to be the same team who gets you to here, who also gets you to here. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the people who got you to each level. It just means that people are set up to be successful in different kinds of businesses.
You alluded again to the growth that we kind of touched on in the beginning of the conversation. Can you share growth plans? And more importantly, I'm kind of interested in how an entrepreneur like yourself thinks about growth. How do you decide when you want to grow, how you want to grow, where you want to go?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, I really didn't think about, this is how I thought about growth. So in the beginning, when we opened our first shop, we had 7 and 8 hour lines that never stopped in the summer. I mean, it would be 2 blocks, the line. I mean, it would move fast, but it never stopped all day. And so in the beginning, I was like, oh my goodness, I need another shop to cut these lines down. And so I was super motivated at that point to get a second shop opened as soon as I could. And so then we opened the Des Moines location. And I thought, oh, the lines are going to be better at Lafayette. Well, then lo and behold, we had the same lines around the block at Des Moines. And in the summer, it was absolutely crazy. And we were the only ice cream in Clayton. And so I was like, I think I might have something here, right? It wasn't just that location or this. And so we just started growing slowly because I was like, oh, we've got to get our product out there. And this is fun. And it was really hard. And I used to talk to my dairy guy all the time. And he was like, well, if you're going to grow, you got to grow to at least 5 shops. Because at 5 shops, things get a lot easier. There's more financial bandwidth to do things. You can hire more people. And so I was in the grind so much for so long. I didn't take a paycheck for 3 years, right, when I started. And I was like, oh my God, so you tell me if I get to 5 shops, my life is going to get easier? I'm like, we're doing it, right? And so I was just excited to get to 5 shops so I could hire support staff and hire the people or hire folks to work with me on the team who are really good at the things I'm not good at. Instead of, when you're an entrepreneur, you have to do everything, whether you're good at it or not, because you're an army of one. And so that was exciting so I was super motivated to get to number 5 to get a team. And lo and behold, he was right? There was more money and I could start taking a paycheck and I could hire people. And I was like, oh, wow, this is great, right? And so you kind of get in that mode and you're enjoying it for a while. And then you're like, oh, wait, if I open another shop, then we can do this. Or if I open another shop, then I can offer 401k. And then if I, so you start seeing the possibilities, and then it kind of fuels your desire for growth, or at least it fueled my desire for growth because I could do more for my team if we grew more. And, it just kind of unfolded that way. And I think in the beginning, Clementine's was very much about me, what I wanted to do and what I wanted to build. And I think as we got to shop 3, 4, Clementine's isn't about me anymore. It's all about the team and what we're doing in St. Louis and the benefits. And it was a very interesting metamorphosis because it was very much centered around me and what I wanted and my vision. And now it's taken on its own life, which is really cool because it's not about me at all anymore. It's all about them. And now that there's more resources and more I don't have to worry as much anymore. And I was like, oh, wow, I can pay myself a salary and I can hire an HR director and, oh, I can hire a staff accountant and, oh, I can hire a CFO. And so you just start doing business better, and you're able to do more good in the community as well. And so that fuels a lot of my fire for growth and knowing what we can do and what we can get to. And honestly, how we can get Clementine's ice cream out, because there's a lot of really terrible ice cream in this country and people deserve better, right? They deserve to have ice cream made the way that it used to be. And that's what motivates me, is to get Clementine's out there and create more really cool experiences for people.
One thing you said there that really stood out to me, or that I resonated with, was when you mentioned like early on kind of having flexibility because you're the business, it's all about you. And then later on having a little bit more structure because it's about the team, and it gives you a little more freedom to do things like this, for example. So just a quick story from my company's perspective, or from Storyboard. Even up to 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, it was primarily myself and a small team. So we didn't even have like time off policies. It was, if someone wants to take a day off or some time off, they take time off. And as we've grown, we've implemented structure like that and a ton of other stuff. And it's definitely allowed me to focus more on the vision or the growth. For you, how many years in would you say that vision or growth came where you had like the team in place where you can start to look at maybe new flavors, new locations, things like that?
I think probably year 5 or 6, I started having more time to think more about expansion and doing other things. I mean, I've always been in charge of our flavors. I just have the benefit of having an R&D chef who helps me now. It's not me doing it all in the kitchen like it was in the beginning. So that's pretty cool. But I would say, yeah, shop 4 or 5, I definitely started having more time to, I think I was really, one thing being an EO taught me was I worked really hard to get out of working in the business to work on the business. And I think once I got to the point where I was working on the business, now I'm working really hard to work above the business. And so I think, as I grow as a leader and a CEO and a business owner and the flavor temptress and chief dishwasher, or whatever you want to call me today, I think it changes as you start growing, because you have more mental capacity when you have a good team of people worried about other things that you used to have to worry about that I don't have to worry about anymore. So that frees me up to think about the bigger picture and the vision and where we're going to grow and how we're going to grow and are we going to expand and what new products do we want to do, to really keep my mind's eye on the innovative aspect of the business too.
Can you expand on working above the business? I've never heard that phrase before. So just curious, what you mean by that, or what your role may look like when you're working above the business.
Well, I think working above the business is really truly being that visionary, right? Is where do we want to take this business, and I try to work myself out of a job all the time, right? To where I have no responsibilities, day-to-day responsibilities anymore. And if I can get a good team that's running the business day-to-day, where I can really focus on where is the business going to grow to next? Do we want to expand to other countries? Do we want to do international licensing? Do we want to come out with interesting retail merchandise, right? So it just gives you that bigger level and that higher level bird's eye view perspective that you can work on when you're working above the business and you've got a really solid leadership team in place who can run the business day to day.
Being someone that can work themselves out of a job or give jobs to other folks, you must be an expert delegator or really good at delegation, if we don't want to use the term expert.
Sure.
Do you have any delegation tips or tricks, or just things you do regularly to try and get stuff off your plate and with people that can maybe do it a little better?
I think one of the great things, or smart things rather, I've done was I have hired people who are smarter than me in their functional areas of responsibilities. And I know it's really hard sometimes for entrepreneurs because we're all control freaks. We want to have our hands in everything. We want to control everything. We want to know about everything. But I think for me, I stepped back and said, okay, I'm going to bring this person in. They know way more about finance than I do, right? And they may not handle a situation maybe exactly the same way that I would, but I'm hiring them and I'm trusting them, and I have to support them to do that, because ultimately at the end of the day, they're making the best choice for the business, right? And so me letting go of having to be the smartest person who knows the most about everything was like phenomenal for me. It was really, really hard in the beginning, but now I really, really appreciate. I love hiring people who are smarter than me at this thing or quality or production or, whatever it may be, because I'd rather have a bunch of smarter people because I'm learning from them then too, right? So they learn from me, but I also get to learn from them. And I think it also supports this notion, sometimes people talk about what gets you to here won't get you to here, which also won't get you to here, right? And it's the same thing with the people who got you to here aren't going to be the same team who gets you to here, who also gets you to here. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the people who got you to each level. It just means that people are set up to be successful in different kinds of businesses, right? So when you're an entrepreneur, your startup, it's a scrappy environment, right? There's a certain team of people you need around you that have the wherewithal and the skill set to be successful in a startup environment. And then as you start scaling and there's more structure and there's more rules and there's more protocols, that initial team, they don't work well in that, right? And so they're not going to be successful in that. And that doesn't mean they're not awesome people and they're not great. That just means that their time has come to go do that for someone else, and that you have to bring in people who like the structure, who like that organization, who can succeed and thrive and who know how to build in those environments. And so part of that growth is transitioning from that startup to that scaling to that structure, and it changes as you grow, but getting the right people and with technical expertise at each of those levels, because I didn't work this hard to get here, which is the same way I didn't work this hard to get here or there, right? And I think that's important. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. And a lot of people don't think about, right? Because you're like, well, hey, I've been in this business, but I'm not succeeding now that the business has grown to this. Well, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That just means the business has changed and your skill set is probably better served somewhere else. And I think we've had really open and candid conversations in our company about that and with people, because we want to support people and, help them get to where they need and want to be in general too.
I love that. And I can totally relate. We've had a similar experience as a company. Just the team members that were with the company early on, the majority of them are not with the company now just because a different skill set, mindset was required, and also more structure works well with some people and not so great with others. So I fully agree with everything you just said.